My job is working with many others to prepare students who are the most important product. I'll go against anybody on that, that we could produce. Students that are intelligent, but most importantly, prepared for the world of work, the world of success after high school, and really working with them to make sure that they're socially ready as well as academically ready.
A quick interruption to remind you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better. Hey, it's Ari Santiago. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Made in America podcast. Today, I'm with Sal Menzo, Superintendent of Wallingford Public Schools. Sal and I had a chance to talk at the Aerospace Component Manufacturers Trade Show last year and talk about the amazing and innovative things he's doing in Wallingford to help those students get ready for careers of the future. Sal, thank you so much for coming on today.
It's my pleasure. I'm really excited to be here.
Dude, I'm super excited to have you on and bring like the Sal Menzo energy to the Made in America audience again.
Well, I appreciate that.
So listen, it's the Made in America podcast. So we always start off with the same two questions, Sal. What do you make and why do you make it?
My job is working with many others to prepare students who are the most important product. I'll go against anybody on that, that we could produce. Students that are intelligent, but most importantly, prepared for the world of work, the world of success after high school, and really working with them to make sure that they're socially ready as well as academically ready.
That's awesome. And why do you do it personally? What drives you to do this?
What drives me to do it is to see the students themselves grow. I am so fortunate because even as a superintendent, now 12 years in one place, which is somewhat of an anomaly, I have such strong connections with the students. I've seen them grow from kindergarten and graduate. I've seen them really gain the knowledge and expertise that they need to be successful. And to have them come back and share their stories, share their experiences is wonderful. I'm in the process of writing 5 college recommendations right now. I don't know how many superintendents write college recommendations for their students. I'm blessed because I connect with the students. I travel with them. I participate in their capstone projects. I immerse myself in their athletic events. Whatever they have to do to make me feel part of their lives is what I'm there for. And I think it's just being a teacher, no matter what role you are in education, being that consummate teacher, that person connecting the students to success.
Did you always want to be a school superintendent?
It's interesting. I actually just had this conversation with a student this week because she was one of our students who traveled to Australia with us on a project that we're doing in aerospace. And she wanted to do a Google Meet to talk and pick my brain about college and life after high school and potentially going back to Australia to study there. And she said, "Did you always want to be a superintendent?" And I said, to be honest, I have to say one of the things that we're working on in Wallingford that I'm proud of is working with our counselors, our school counselors, to help students make the best decisions. And not that I didn't have a great school counselor, it was just assumed I was going to college. And it was assumed I was going to go to the best college I can get into based on my GPA. And fortunately, I was okay in that area. But nobody really asked me specifically what I wanted to be. And I ended up going to a liberal arts college, Connecticut College in New London, but I knew I wanted to go study abroad. And I knew I wanted to do something, but I also knew I had a business side. And I think that education, the reason why I got to become, or just chose to become a superintendent is because I wanted to have more experience than just that of being in a classroom, knowing that I could leverage that. So I guess leadership was always in my mindset, right. But not necessarily superintendency. I did envy a family friend of ours who was the superintendent in West Haven who got to cancel school. Right. I no longer envy him. No, because being up at 3:00 in the morning is not a fun time. No. So God rest his soul, Dr. Onofrio. I always was jealous and I was like, oh, it's so cool. He's the man. He gets to cancel school. Now, not so much.
Heavy lays the crown of the king.
Definitely. My neck and shoulders are really suffering because of that for now almost 18 years as a superintendent.
It also feels like one of those situations where you're sort of damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Absolutely. It's
if
all
you
about
close the school,
safety.
Somebody's thinking, he's like, we could have made it. The buses can run. And if you don't close, someone's saying, well, it's too dangerous, but you can't.
Correct. You can't win. You just have to err on the side of caution. Sure. And, over time, you develop the trust and respect of those. And when you make a mistake, sometimes the forecasters are not great. And you have to own up to it and say, hey, this is the data I had. This is the best I could do. I'm sorry. Mea culpa. I made a mistake. let's move on.
That's how life goes, right?
Absolutely.
So listen, a lot of people listening, probably everybody listening to this podcast has never been a school superintendent before. And most, if not all, have probably never worked in a school system, though I'm sure all have attended a school system. So I think just for the benefit of the people who are listening and who care so much about the workforce of tomorrow, let's just talk about what's it like to be a school superintendent in 2020. What are you doing with your time, and how does that impact what the Wallingford school system puts out from a students being ready for the future that you talked about?
Sure. Pre-COVID,
every story nowadays starts off.
Have to preface that because right now we're doing a lot of contact tracing. But in the meantime, prior to COVID, the school superintendent really has a variety of roles. And I think it depends on how you personally see yourself in that role. I see myself not just as the educational leader of the school district, working with teachers, administrators, all of our staff. We have 9 unions, so 9 different groups of individuals working to really have an impact on students' lives. I also see myself as a major employer. If not, we are the single largest employer in the town of Wallingford.
How many people?
We have over 1,000 people.
Wow.
So the fact is that as the largest employer, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to the community, I believe, and we have a responsibility to all the citizenry. And so in my role as a superintendent, the way I take on that role, and I took it on the same way when I was superintendent in Marlborough, was the fact that we need to embrace the community and we need to be part of the community, and they need to embrace us. So, as a superintendent now, there are a lot of things that are taking our time. Obviously, we want students to be successful. So student achievement and the achievement gap is key. But in addition, we know that there's the success after high school. So working with local business has become a real important factor. And that always was the case. Throughout my career as a teacher, I taught in Willimantic. I did my college career, as I said, in New London. So working with businesses to try to get them engaged with our students to have successful opportunities for them. So I think a superintendent, it's a lot of balancing. But you have to also find as a superintendent, where do you derive your pleasure? Where are you going to get your pleasure from your job? What is going to make you, and it's not writing another memo. It's not, developing another budget document, to be honest. Those aren't necessarily the most pleasurable items that you want to do on your daily schedule. So you have to look at what's going to feed your soul, because in turn, it's going to feed the district. And I think I've been blessed that I've worked with Board of Education members that have allowed me to really take on those initiatives. And then I've worked with staff throughout the district, pre-K through 12, that have stepped up and wanted to work with us. So it's really, it's a hodgepodge of things, but you have to find what your niche is. And I think ours, because Wallingford receives only 20% of its funding from federal government or from the Connecticut government, we have 80% that has to come from the taxpayers. So it's my job, it's my responsibility to be a partner in the community, to show them that the education is valued, it's worth something, and that we're going to give back as much as we can. Not just take that 80% from the tax base, but we're also going to help grow that tax base so that 80%, when it's doled out across many more people or many more groups, then it's less of an impact on those people individually.
Sounds like you've got a real connection to the responsibility that comes with controlling what I assume is a huge part, if not the lion's share, of the Wallingford town budget.
Absolutely.
So where does that stewardship mentality, the idea of realizing that, yeah, it might be school, yes, we might be dealing with kids, but we still need to think about ROI. We still need to be thinking about, how do people feel that this money is being spent in a way that makes their kids' lives better, makes the town better? Where did you realize to make that connection? And is that as unique as I think it is in sort of how things are thought about in the world of education?
I can't profess to say that it's 100% unique. I think that how I came to it was, again, all of my experiences. I've been very, 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 very blessed. Starting in the high school with different things that I was afforded the opportunities to travel and do experiences with, or have experiences with, and then through college. I think I really saw it when I was at Connecticut College in New London, and I was working at the Office of Volunteers for Community Service, and I was the head of the organization for a period of time, and we had to write federal grants. And our group was to go out into the New London Public Schools to help them develop programming for literacy or for numeracy or for peer mentors, whatever it may be. And in that process, I was very fortunate to work with the president of the college at the time, Dr. Claire Gaudiani, and learn a little bit about how to write grants, but also understand from her perspective how Conn College was situated as part of the New London community. It wasn't just the students that were there, some of them very, very affluent, taking from the community, but also giving back to the community. So I think that mindset, and it's also been part of my life with my parents. My parents were always actively involved in volunteering in a variety of capacities in the community that I grew up in. So I think that became instilled in me, but it also, the success that came from it, it's contagious. If you start doing something like that and you say, okay, wow, look we just got this large grant to do a literacy program for women in the Niantic Women's Prison and their children, or we just got this grant to set up a new science foundation. That grows and it makes you it gets that fire in your belly.
Yeah, you want some more.
And then when you become, I became a teacher and I chose to go to Willimantic. I was thrilled to work there. Again, it was a depressed area, but the community wanted to support the schools. And I was fortunate enough to work with 5 other individuals that had the same passion on my team. And we did whatever we had to do to get what we needed for our students. And we were the team that the community connected with. And I think that just keeps transitioning and transferring those philosophies through all the things that I do. And I think Wallingford is a wonderful place because there is so much business. There's so much international business. And we are very fortunate that those businesses understand that they have to be partners with the school district. But it's not a partnership that's one-sided. I coach some superintendents every so often about, well, how did you get that? I just got $10,000 yesterday, basically, just from a phone call. And how did you do that? Well, because you don't start off with saying, I'm calling because I need $10,000. You call because you want to know a little bit about what they're doing. You want to make that personal connection. And you don't always get the money, but we'll never know. A month, 2 months, maybe even a year later. Some are hard sells.
Right.
But you do come back around and you want them to see that you are committed to them. And I think that's been essential. And I think, again, it goes back to being allowed to do those things.
Right. You got to have the permission to develop those relationships to be able to leverage them. I think that's a really good transition because some people might be wondering, all right, this is the Made in America podcast focused on manufacturing in Connecticut. What do you have a superintendent here for? So I think that it's important. 2 reasons. I think education clearly is so important to developing the workforce, which is so critical to manufacturers. But I think even beyond that, you guys are doing some pretty cool stuff in Wallingford, partnership with business. So maybe kind of educate the audience for those that don't know, what are you guys doing and why am I so excited about it?
Sure. No, I'm fortunate. I have a wonderful staff. As I said, this is not a one-person show at all. Never will be. And if there's somebody who thinks it is, then they're just crazy.
Right.
But the fact is, we have a wonderful experience going on in Wallingford for our students. When I arrived 12 years ago, we have a very active ag science program. We were just completing the building of a new structure, a new school. That program in itself has grown exponentially. So, for example, with business there, we work with local farmers. We have one of the top farmers in Jeremiah Farms who worked, and has worked with us as a school district. So we have a full horticultural program. We grow salmon, tilapia, catfish. So we have an aquaculture program. We have small animal science. We have large animals. We used to have the Cadbury bunny. The real one.
Really?
Yes, we did. And we have also a full food sciences program, and we also have ag mechanics. So what we saw when I got there was that these students were just having such great experiences. The businesses were willing to take them in. And I'm like, okay, but that's such a small part of our population. What about all the other high school students throughout the district? We have over 2,000 students that are at the high school level in our district. Why aren't they getting similar experiences?
2,000 just high schoolers?
Just high schoolers, because we have 2 high schools in Wallingford.
Right.
So what we did over the period of time is that we've developed other programming. We already had a seed of a CNA or medical careers program that started out with 1 teacher. Now we're up to 3 teachers. We have certified nursing. We were able to build a fully functioning hospital at one of the 2 schools through donations through Masonic.
Really?
Yep. Through Masonic and through Gaylord and Midstate Medical. So donations through them, as well as our corporate sponsor, Office Depot. who was working with us. So we have 5 fully functioning hospital beds with anatomically correct dummies and a nurse's station. And the students are able to really get a variety of experiences there. Most of our students who do the CNA program end up going on to medical school in some capacity. And then some realize, okay, I'm done. I'll put a Band-Aid on it right now.
Right.
That's good enough. I'm good. But that program continues to grow where we have partnerships with Hartford Medical. So that was another area. So we were able to move that. Another cluster that we look at, or another pathway, is our culinary program. And our culinary program is significant because we have a fully functioning restaurant, we have a fully functioning food truck, and we have a bakery. And that's grown over the years. And those students work in the hospitality industry within the town. We work with very closely with Toyota Presents Oakdale Theater. They're amazing partners with us, as well as the local hotels and restaurants. But most recently, we went into the area.
Good of you to use their sponsored name, by the way.
Yes. Don't worry. I'll be calling Mike Andrews is getting a call because I expect some residuals on that.
That's right.
So the thing, or Jimmy Koplick.
I was going to say.
I'll go to Jimmy.
Yeah.
But the thing is that now we moved into the area of advanced manufacturing and engineering. And so the last 3.5 years, we've worked with Goodwin University, and we've also worked with Middlesex Community College, and most importantly, our local businesses to develop an authentic curriculum. All of the areas that I spoke about, the curriculum is not just written by our teachers. To be honest, our teachers are wonderful, but they don't have the practical expertise.
Sure.
So we brought in the local businesses. They helped create an advanced manufacturing pre-engineering program that our students get the state certificate through Todd Birch at the Department of Labor. And we also have a relationship with local businesses so that they can do a paid pre-apprenticeship program. We just put in last year Haas Mini Mills. We have it going at both high schools. So we have about 40, I want to say this year we have about 45 students in the program. We graduate annually about 30 to 40 students. And they're actually going out, they're doing their job site visits, they're getting involved. But the key thing is that no matter what path the students are taking, we want them to understand not just what it means to work in that industry, but what it means to be a good employee. Because a lot of our businesses, through our business think tank, which we have, keep telling us that that's the key thing. Especially, they've experienced some of those similar things that we've experienced with distance learning when businesses have had to go virtual in some aspects during COVID. They realize that sometimes the stamina of their employee, like the stamina of our student, isn't always there to retain their attention. So we're trying to work with our students in that regard as well. The last area that we're really excited about is our Aerospace Center. And our Aerospace Center is a partnership with VSEC, which is the Victorian Student Science Education Center in Melbourne, Australia. This is through our partnership with the U.S. Department of Commerce, through Ann Evans, who I was fortunate enough back in 2019 or 18, summer of 18, go over to Australia with Ron Angelo from CCAT and, go over there. And Anne said, Sal, just go and we know you'll come up with something. So having studied in Australia, I went to the University of Sydney for a period of time. I spent some time there, met with some cool people in their design labs, their innovation labs. And then I went up to Melbourne and I met with the Ministry of Education. And long story short, we have had this partnership. We brought students, 8 females, to Australia in the summer of 2019. They have now become kind of the board of directors for our center. And our center opened, the first floor of the center opened last October on the 28th. And we're looking to complete the center later this spring. The center is a virtual experience where the students are immersed on being on the Mars space station.
Right.
And it's been a phenomenal opportunity. So this all works hand in hand. But we also have programming, if I may.
No, yeah, hold on. Just move your mic a little bit.
Oh.
It's all right.
Up?
Just in front. Yeah, just moving in front. That's all right. Here you go. You're good.
All right. We also have programming where we work with our community to develop workforce opportunities for people in the community who need to, who are unemployed. So we work with local businesses and we have our pipeline program that's been very successful.
So, I mean, what's so great about this, at least from my perspective, is, I mean, I can still remember going to like the guidance counselor in high school.
School counselor.
School counselor. Sorry. Is that what they're called now?
Yes, please.
I guess I'm dating myself. So I went to my school counselor and, it was like this conversation about what do you want to do? And I I remember feeling this like immense pressure to pick something, having never tried anything really. My combined work experience going into the end of high school was golf caddy, occasional newspaper delivery boy, and a paper filer at my mom's office, like, you know what I mean, and babysitting my brothers. Like, so that's not really a wide swath of career options. And so I think having these experiences that you can do in high school where it's like just so safe to experiment with something, even outside of school, but just to have the permission to do it in school and have people guiding you through, that's just got to be so powerful to helping people into the future. Is that what you see from the results?
Absolutely. And the conversations are so, even over the course of time, I mean, really, we've been on a many-year journey, but I would say the last 4 years, really hitting the groove, and the conversations that have evolved with students about life after high school totally transformed. And again, we don't also just start at high school. That's a major problem if you start this at high school. We drop down career development all the way to our K-2 schools.
Get out of here.
So we look at, we start down there and we look at exploration. They have to have exposure. They have to know, because like you said, you had a certain sphere of what you knew for careers growing up. I knew what my parents did. You knew what your parents, what your grandparents did, maybe your aunt, your uncle. And that's all you know. So a lot of our students, especially, Wallingford has become much more diverse, which is wonderful. But we have some students who don't have a wide range of understanding of career opportunities. So we start at the elementary school, just giving them exposure through nonfiction literature, which is part of the curriculum, just really, having them learn about different careers. We start bringing in...
Even in elementary school?
Absolutely.
Really?
We start bringing in people from the community, we're actually working on, because now it's all going to be virtual, we're working on a series of videos with local businesses to talk
get
about
people exposed to what's out there.
Absolutely.
Because it just rings so true, and maybe people in the audience can relate to this. Like thinking about sitting down with my school counselor and ultimately where I went to, you're exactly right. I sat down and looked at who did I know. My mom was a dentist. Nope, not doing that. Grandfather's an oral surgeon. Nope, not doing that. Grandmother was essentially like, stay-at-home wife and then doing some stuff in like a community center. No, I wasn't going to do that. So I was like, all right, I guess lawyer it is, and I can imagine that if those same, whatever those horizons look like in everyone's world, that's probably where they go, because that's what seems possible. And I'm sure if your mom or dad is like the president or U.S. senator, well, then that seems possible.
Correct.
But if they're not, then it seems much less so. And so it's just so interesting. Is it working? I mean, do you have evidence that it's working?
We do have evidence. We've been collecting a lot of data along the way. Our number of students taking classes outside of the normal realm of what they used to take, meaning that they're taking more CTE classes, career technical education classes, those numbers have increased. And the good news is, and there's a lot of value to that data, because in the past, in most districts, a lot of students won't take those courses because they're not weighted like AP classes. They're not honors classes. They're academic classes. They're college prep classes. And if you're a student who does aspire, which is great, to go to a 4-year university, you want your GPA to get as many opportunities to increase as possible. Right. So, it was a lot of marketing on the part of our teachers. We had CTE fairs where students were able to go during lunchtime to go talk to the teachers, see what was going on, but really getting the students to understand that, your GPA is important and we're all for it to be, as high as it possibly can be. But could your college candidacy, if that's where you're choosing to go right after high school, could it be enhanced by saying that you were in a pre-engineering class, or that you were part of a capstone project that worked with the local economic development commission on bringing in a large business to town? Would that enhance your overall profile rather than just taking another AP class or taking another honors class? And so it's really trying to change the mindset of not just the student, but also the parent.
Yeah, that's a huge...
Because the parents, again, a lot of the parents, thank goodness, have been successful. They got to the success that they've reached by going down a certain road, and they believe that the same road that their child needs to take. So we have to continue to work with the parents. We have to continue to work with our counselors, our school counselors, to help them better understand also. They're wonderful people. They do great
But
work.
again, you only know what you know. So if you
Exactly.
don't know, then you don't know, notice it's knowing the more you know, right? So how do you, so let's talk about this, right? So whether it's in business or in education, you got to measure success, right? I would think to know if you're
Correct.
getting more of it or less of it. So when you think about student success, student success going through the Wallingford public system, they come in K, hopefully are out at 12, I assume. What are you measuring? What's the metric of success to say that was a successful, you said I make students that are prepared for their life and the career in front of them, roughly. So how do you measure that? How do you know when they come out the other end?
Well, we have multiple indicators. We have a balanced scorecard that we set up like business would put in place.
Balance, yep.
So we have a balanced scorecard basically that allows us to look at the key focus areas of our strategic plan, because everything we do has to be guided by our strategic plan, which is directly connected to our mission and vision. So our goal is to make sure that our core values of our strategic plan are monitored and measured. So for our students, we look at attendance. We look at our attendance rates, which are always one of the highest in the state of Connecticut. We look at our standardized assessment when it's available this year, and probably next year it won't be available. But we do see our SAT scores continuing to rise. We look at our graduation rates. We are well above 94% graduation rate. That is just a number because it's what you do and your persistence rating. How many students go off to a 2-year, 4-year college and don't follow the statistical unfortunate data that is national, which is that 40% drop out by the time they get to their sophomore year. We're well above that average, which is good. So we look at that as a data point, looking for our students.
So where does somebody who go through the program and say gets a job in aerospace manufacturing, where does that show up in your data? And is that a negative blip?
No, that's actually a celebration.
Okay, there we go.
Because what we do
now we're cooking with gas.
Yeah, which is really cool is that the past 3 years, and this is where I have to explain in the narrative that we send out with this, is we've had the number of students going to 2-year or 4-year colleges has dropped, but the number of people going right into the workforce has increased. And so then we explain the fact that they're going into high-paying jobs, high-paying careers, that they're able to go into businesses, because we will only sign up with businesses for our students as interns or as mentors or whatever that are able to show us that there's a career ladder. Mm-hmm. That it's not just a dead-end job. We also want a place where we place our students where they're going to get potential college reimbursement for credits that they take. So our students are going into very, very fertile locations where they can grow, they can become part of a family business, a large business, and have success, have the 401k, have all those things. So that is not a detriment whatsoever. The state might see that as a detriment, but in Wallingford, we do not see it as a detriment. We have the state reporting system, which we honor and we respect because we have to. But then we have our local system, and that's why our balanced scorecard was really based on what we saw as the important indicators. When we developed it, we put together a variety of feedback sessions from students, families, community members. We did a lot of sessions, got a lot of feedback, and said, what would be the indicators you would want to know that we're doing well as a district and our students are doing well as graduates? Because the key thing is, and I've shared this before in many different settings, is that I want the students who graduate from Wallingford to have a diploma that has a high level of currency value. I do not want them to be the Canadian coming to the United States, but I want to be the American going to Canada. Right. I want a great exchange rate so they can take it wherever they go, they can know that they are going to be able to be successful and get a good return on their investment, their personal investment of years of education in our district.
So how did you get the board to kind of allow you to explain your balanced scorecard versus just following whatever the state scorecard is? And I mean, was there any negotiation there? Were they like totally on board from the beginning? How does that work?
I think there's, I don't know how much negotiation there was, to be honest. I think that I'm the teacher of the Board of Education.
Right.
So I am the instructional leader of them. So it wasn't where you go in there one day and say, this is what we're doing. Right. You have to gradually disclose your journey with them and to them. And you have to lead them on that path with you and explain to them that success is not indicated by one measure. Mm-hmm. So it was really getting the board initially to understand that it's multiple measures that help us better understand what students know and are able to do. Then it was bringing the students in front of them and explaining the experiences that they were having and having that personal connection, students that went to Germany and then came back and did internships, or students who went to Argentina or went to Australia or China, having them explain that, but then having students in our culinary program serve them food, get them involved.
Really
food is a universal,
that is universal language.
But the thing is though, it's getting them to see the value. The young lady who's now in her junior year at the Culinary Institute of America in New York, who had her own cooking show on Channel 8 and opened up a pop-up bakery that the people were down the street lined up. We had to close early because they ran out of food. But showing them that there's those value-added pieces. And then also the other part of it is having the businesses come in and talk about how rewarding it is for them to work with our students.
So talk about that. I mean, that's actually exactly where I wanted to go next, which is, a key component of making this all work is getting the businesses on board. So, I mean, just talk us through that. And what's interesting here is I think there's people that have mentioned to me since our last time we talked who have been like, how do we get that in our town? How do we get that better cooperation? So maybe from your side, how did it start and how do you keep it going?
Well, it started, every district, and I always say this, every district is required under the Carl E. Perkins grant to have some type of business group that gets together as with the school district. So every school district should have a mechanism for businesses to be part of their discussion about education. When I got there, ours was active, but it wasn't as vibrant as I had hoped. So personally, again, my approach is you got to go out to the people. Mm-hmm. So I started just making cold calls. I started calling and saying, could I meet with the president? I'll meet with anybody. I'll meet with the janitor if that gets me to the president at some point. I'll meet with anybody. So I started meeting with the large businesses. And it really, the fortunate thing was at the time, one of my board members, Jay Shea, who's the CFO for Ulbrich Steel, he was able to also—
a good person to know him.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Oh my God. I consider him one of my key mentors. He was able to also get me some meetings with people, but it was going into even the small businesses and getting those partnerships. But I think the key along the way was that you can't overpromise and underdeliver. Mm-hmm. So as a school district, I had to be very strategic, knowing what my capacity was personally, as well as capacity of my staff, to be able to put that forth to the businesses and say, okay, we're willing to do this. Would you help us on this journey? And I think that we've 9 out of 10 times have exceeded expectations, which I think then businesses say, okay, wait a minute, this person is going to put his money where his mouth is. Mm-hmm. He's not going to just say, okay, yeah, whatever. We opened up the Aerospace Center in less than 6 months after we came back.
Right.
And they know that we're going to do that. And we're not adding extra tax burden. But it's also, making sure you listen to them. And I think that's really where we started our meetings. When we brought back our business, we call it now the business think tank. When we revitalized that group, we wanted to hear from them. The first year of meetings was all about their needs. It wasn't about our needs. And then when we came back, we said, based on your needs, this is what we've already put in place. And they were like, wow, okay, you listened to us.
Yeah.
So that was really the impetus for that. It was to really get them to feel respected. Get them to feel that we were there to support them. We just had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and our whole meeting was, how can we help you and your families who are dealing with the COVID scenarios? Because some businesses in Wallingford have done really, really well.
Others not as much.
Not so much.
Yeah.
So we're trying to help them in that regard, and we have a great relationship with Tim Ryan, our head of our economic development, who I spoke to just prior to coming here. But the fact is that, again, it's getting them involved. It's making sure that the narrative continues, and it takes time. It takes time, and you have to have this passion. And I'm fortunate that I've been allowed to. And I say that with all sincerity, because I'm sure there are places where this would not be necessarily encouraged.
Yeah. Well, you got to find the right people and put them in the right place. So what turned you on to manufacturing? You said you started kind of your manufacturing center, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. So what turned you on to manufacturing? I
think it was the businesses in town. It was going out and touring the businesses, bringing my staff with me and seeing, obviously we heard that they were the clean, they weren't the dirty, dark, and dangerous as they used to be. And then seeing that and then learning how, phenomenally rewarding the careers that were in each of those businesses could be for our students made it a no-brainer. And then obviously then being in contact with Ann Evans and knowing the shortages in the state, and then getting involved with what once was known as New Haven Manufacturers Association, all the different groups, and saying, okay, wait a minute, there's an area here that we have students who definitely could benefit from this. We have citizens, we have parents who could benefit from this. And that's why through Hubcap Wallingford, which is our nonprofit business incubator that we started now going on 6 years ago, fully funded through donations and the incubators that we lease, we were able to set up the pipeline program. And it's so exciting to be able to, we placed over 85% of our participants, $35 a session. So 6 sessions for $35.
Not bad.
It's not bad. And we fed them every time. So, pretty much paid for food. But it was wonderful to see our students get jobs after they moved through the program, but then also have some parents who came because they knew that the present position they were in wasn't going to allow them to have the quality of life for their children as they
So I think you need to expand on that a little bit, because I'm not sure everyone's sort of following that. The Hubcap program isn't just for public school students.
No, this was open to anybody in the community. We'll be doing another session starting in February. We're going to do a hybrid model, virtual, in person. But it's a 6-week program. And basically we work with Workforce Alliance out of New Haven. We work with our adult ed program. So we had students from 18 through, I think our oldest was probably close to 60.
Never stop learning.
Nope. We had retired vets. We wanted to really make a push to our veterans. And so what we would do is during the course of the 6 weeks, they would take an assessment on English and math. They would get remediation if necessary from our adult education teachers. They would also learn interview skills, set up their resumes. We subscribe to lean philosophy in our district. So we would teach them some lean practices, doing some design thinking activities, because we also teach design thinking throughout our curriculum. And then they would actually interview with local businesses. Our key players were Ulbrich Steel, Allnex, Hobson and Motzler. We also worked with Connecticut Hypodermic. And so they were and BIC, I'm sorry,
BIC, yeah.
Was another one. So they basically would do the interviews, and the students would graduate. But again, phenomenal program. We're actually, our next one is going to be more of a generalist approach. So we're looking at a variety of different fields, because medical in our area is very important. So we're going to be giving the students or participants, we like to say participants,
I got it.
We're going to give them a variety of experiences. So they're going to hear about advanced manufacturing. They're going to hear about medical industries, which actually crosses over to advanced manufacturing, but also medical careers. They're going to hear about hospitality. And then we're going to have more deep pipelines that they can go into after that. So we're constantly expanding it. And we're very fortunate because, again, we have the location, which is right in the center of town, wonderful space, and we have all the connections. And the businesses love it because they're able to come in and talk about their business. Mm-hmm. They're able to make those personal connections and cultivate those to future employees.
Yeah, which is just so huge. I mean, is this a model that has been, or is there other places in the state that you're aware of that are doing this?
Well, there's other pipeline programs, and I do have to say that Joe Mara, who is on the Economic Development Commission for Wallingford, and also Workforce Alliance, is a key player in this. Joe has, we would not have been able to do all this without Joe. So there are other pipelines that have popped up. I know, like EWIB, out in eastern part of the state, the workforce board over there, they did their workforce pipeline with electric boat. Yeah. And then you had, because that was Kelly. Mm-hmm. And then you also have some pipeline programming that's going through Workforce Alliance in New Haven out based on the large grant that they received over the last 2 years. Their programs are much more skill-based. Yep. What we wanted to do is, again, listen to our local businesses. Our local businesses said, don't mess them up. Just give us people who want to be committed to working in our business, have good math skills, have strong language skills, and then we'll train them.
We'll do the rest.
You don't need to go into how to do CNC, how to do all those things. We don't need that.
Right.
So that's where you have to know your market. And I think that's where we decided that's what our market was. Other school districts doing this, absolutely, I don't believe. Right. I wouldn't say absolutely not.
Right.
You never know. Yeah. I have not heard of.
How much collaboration is there between towns in terms of sharing best practices? I think about all the great trade groups we have in manufacturing, Manufacturer CT, EMA, who's involved with the EWIB and the manufacturing pipeline down there, ACM, SMA, we've been through the list over and over. Like, that's great. Is there that type of peer learning, best practice sharing across the state? Because, it seems to me like we want to develop great community responsible adults that are employable and contribute in whatever way really suits their passion everywhere, not just in certain pockets. So is that happening? Is there experience sharing and best practice sharing?
I think that there hasn't been as much as I think there's going to be. We had our first ever superintendent meeting just a couple of weeks ago.
What do you mean first ever?
Where we talked about workforce development.
Oh, okay.
So that was key. Colin was there.
Oh, sure.
And Kelly joined us as well. The commissioner was online of the State Department of Education. But that was the first time. The turnout wasn't huge because I think, again, it's a challenge because there's so many competing interests. And I think that, I think you have to be able to balance it. And some superintendents, they don't have necessarily the additional staff to work in this area. I know when I was in Marlboro, I was the superintendent.
You were the guy.
I was making sure that the septic system worked.
Right.
So the thing is, you had to have a passion for it. So I think we do have opportunities to talk as superintendents. We do have area superintendent groups like you just mentioned for manufacturing. We meet regularly. But oftentimes there are other topics that do supersede, such conversations. I think that there is now more of a desire to have these conversations. Obviously, the state the governor has put in different roles to help in this area. I'm assuming there'll be some work that's coming from that. I am not privy to what that'll be, but I'm assuming there'll be some work coming from that. I know my group that I meet with every Wednesday, which is Cheshire, Southington, Meriden, and Wallingford. The four of us get together virtually now. But we talk about these topics. I mean, Meriden is doing wonderful things. Southington has projects going on. There are a lot of good things going on through the state. It's just not coordinated.
Right. And I don't know how much it does need to be or doesn't need to be coordinated, right? I'm not that deep in it.
It
but
does.
Okay, good. I agree. Or I would think that'd be the case. I mean, here's the thing, right? Connecticut talks about all the time. We talk about in Connecticut all the time, how workforce is so critical to our competitive advantage, right? When you're in sort of, the Northeast or, some of those just like older states, right? Where through whatever history there's been, costs have risen and we've invested in education and a lot of other things, which means we got to get the return out of that. And it's just so important, I think.
Absolutely. But there's systemic changes that have to occur and it has to start at all levels. So it really has to be pre-K through 16.
Right.
It has to go into the university systems. We look at there's courses that I would love to teach in our school district. And it's not because our teachers don't want to teach them. They just don't have the capacity because the certification programs that they went through did not address those different concepts. So, when we look at our higher education system, we really do have to look at our certification programs there. We have to really revisit do a 5 to 10, 15-year map of what is going to be the financial, what is going to be the business landscape on which Connecticut is situated. We do need to do that analysis, and then we need to backwards design into what we should be offering in our universities. Not saying that every child needs to come out one of these things, but we need to at least make them available.
Right, and so we know where the major amount of demand is.
Exactly.
I mean, all businesses in manufacturing that I've talked to care so much about workforce development. What would your advice be to people who care and want to make sure that the opportunities for the kids in Connecticut are getting better and more connected to a career and make a positive impact in education? What could they do? What would you recommend they do?
Well, I think that if they're not on their school district, their local school district's career advisory board, then they should ask and they should try to call and get on that advisory board to offer their input. I've said that before in other venues, and I've had some businesses reach out to me from very different locations in Wallingford, and I've helped them, participate in their local board at the school level. But I think that's the first step. I think then they need to continue to advocate that when decisions are made legislatively, that there is some consideration being given for workforce development, K-12 as well as post high school,
right.
because I think that there's some challenges, and I think that it also goes back to, like I said earlier, about the balanced scorecard. Like, why did Wallingford let us look at this data versus this data? We need to continue to educate people, and even at the State Department, there's wonderful people there. They're working so tirelessly, no doubt about that. But we need to make sure that the other indicators of success, which have been put into the scorecard somewhat, the report card somewhat, are continued to be highlighted as valued, not just added features for the other kids or the other students. They need to be just as valued as the number of students taking AP and getting a 3 on it. They need to be valued at the GPA. All those different things, they need to be valued. So we have to make sure that goes on. And then businesses...
Because we explain in more than just words how valuable something
Absolutely.
is. You can say it's one thing, but when the GPA doesn't show it, when the scorecard doesn't show it, that's a problem.
Yeah, you get the less than. And you're never going to get students...
And kids know that.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. The students know it. I mean, there were many heart-to-heart conversations walking around Melbourne with the students a couple of summers ago. And these are students who, are somewhat high flyers, but they were really... considering, okay, well, what do we do? Why, I want to take this class, but I know my GPA is going to suffer. I mean, I'll never forget, we had a van ride all about GPA, and my assistant superintendent for curriculum was there, and she's like, okay, enough already. Just do what you want. Do what you love.
Yeah.
And I think that the more we can get everyone in the community to understand that, but businesses really, I know it's hard because it's not always comfortable, and nor should it be, where the business should have to reach out to the school district, but if you have to, and I'd be happy if anybody who's watching this wants to reach out to me, I'll help you.
Right.
Because I do work with, I've worked with other districts in this regard. And I think that, we can get there. It's just, there's a lot, everybody is overwhelmed. That's the longest 4-letter word in our language right now. But you have to identify what's important, and workforce development is key.
Critical.
We're going to be nowhere. But we also need to get some good data. And I think that's hopefully what I know Colin's working on, and I know Kelly will be working on, is getting us some good data to support what Wallingford is doing, what Farmington's doing, what all these other towns are trying to do. There are some little engines, and we just need to get a little bit more energy.
So just like 2 more quick questions,
Sure.
and we'll go to rapid round of my rapid fire questions. So first one I want to ask you, you touched on a little bit earlier that Wallingford has increased a lot in diversity. And so I know that's in all different ways.
Yeah, it's excellent.
So how do you manage all of that and sort of like get, make it all work together?
It's difficult. I mean, we have 47 languages spoken in town. And when I arrived in Wallingford, we were about 10%, 8 to 10% free reduced lunch. Now we're up to 38%. Most recently, United Way gave out data that 38% of an additional 38% is just below or above the threshold for free reduced lunch. So we have a lot of families that are in financial need. The diversity has been wonderful. It has lent so much to our schools. But you have to, again, it's just like with businesses, you have to connect with those families. Our adult ed program is vital. We have one of the I would say probably the best adult education programs in the state. We offer school age programming for all of our students. So adult programming throughout the whole school day. We do dual language immersion programs throughout the school day. But so you have to connect with those groups. And then you also have to make sure that you're honoring them too, because a lot of our adult learners come from other countries with degrees that unfortunately they can't utilize in the States because it doesn't transfer. So we've worked with a lot of families helping their transcripts being decoded, so to speak, by universities to have them be able to grow. And then, you utilize those successes, and they have relatives who come over, the next generation that comes over, and you create those relationships. But you need to, it's really a grassroots effort in a lot of the areas when it comes to diversity, working with all the different community groups to make them feel comfortable, and then giving them access to those programming.
And is it something that you look at as a strength of the town?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Without a doubt. I think, the more diversity you could bring into a community, the better, because our world that our students are going to go into is diverse.
Oh yeah.
And they need to understand different perspectives. They need to understand different, cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds. They need to have that appreciation, and they need to know that everyone is entitled to their opinion. Everyone is entitled to their voice, and that, we can all be much stronger together than separate. And I think our students get that. And I love it, because it's just transforming the district, and, bringing those adult learners out to the businesses too, is so important.
It is. And I love what you said, that when, you've talked from the very beginning about this being about helping kids get ready for the future. And you're right. The world that kids are going into right now is going to be more diverse, more different, more widespread than ever before. And the more they're exposed to that as kids, the more comfortable they're going to be with it as adults. And that's going to help them be more ready, more successful for whatever path, they take in life. So that will lead me to kind of my last question, which is, when you sit from your perspective, having been so many places in the state, I mean, the northeast corner, southeast for school, middle of the state, down in Marlboro, so you've just been a lot of places, and you've been doing this education thing for a long time. From where you sit as the superintendent of public schools in Wallingford, what do you see as the future for education and for the kids in Connecticut? Are you hopeful? Are you challenged? Do you think the future is bright? Are you concerned? What does it look like?
I'm hopefully optimistic. I think that this scenario that we're in right now with the pandemic is definitely an opportunity that we have to seize. There's a lot that we can learn from this experience, and I encourage my staff to look at this as, let's see where we can go further, rather than say we have to stop. So my concern, the reason why I said I'm hopefully optimistic is I'm concerned that some districts, some communities might feel, because COVID has, kind of taken us over and consumed us, that you can't continue to progress, that you have to, we're overwhelmed again. We can't take on new things. We can't look to creativity and innovation. If anything, we need to be more innovative than ever.
Yeah.
So I think that as long as we can have all of our mindsets in that regard, and then the people who lead us, at the state in all the different capacities, to continue to move in that direction as well. And we can't lower standards during this time either. And that's the part that I can go a whole nother hour on that. But the thing is that, throughout this process, we can't lower standards. We have to maintain or actually increase standards.
Listen, challenges present great opportunities for change.
Absolutely.
Things that were intractable before, the impossible all of a sudden seems possible. The ability and willingness for people to try something new.
Well, and the key thing is that one of the key attributes that our businesses say our students have to have is agility and mindset. How much more of a real world experience can you get than the pandemic? You have to have that agility. Yeah. So, we need to make sure that we're offering those experiences, and then we're approaching it from, this is an opportunity. I met with a group of students in our culinary program, our Foods 4, and they're on doing independent studies. So they want to reopen the restaurant. So they said, Dr. Menzo, we want to open the restaurant. I said, okay, well, what have you done? They put together this presentation, phenomenal. Dave Lehman would have been so proud, because they used all of the reopening information. Actually, I was supposed to call him this week and try to reach out to him, because they are so excited, and they did everything they needed to do, and they saw this as an opportunity. Sure. They're not going to, they said, we could have gone without having the restaurant open all year, and we would have done something, but we're not doing that. So
listen, it's that kind of energy, that kind of positivity that I think is why everyone always feels like the kids are the future. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because they're the ones that are just not gonna take anything.
No, they're not gonna take prisoners. They're just moving forward. They have they're gonna do a grab and go system. They have the whole thing down. And I think that as long as we allow our students at all levels to continue to be creative and continue to have that positivity about them, and that optimism, and we as adults don't suck it out of them, then we'll be fine.
Listen, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm going to leave it there, because that is a great place to end it, and a good reminder for anybody. Let the kids spread their wings. So listen, you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Red Sox or Yankees?
Well, you know this already.
I do.
Yankees.
I know. Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts?
It depends on the coffee. It depends on what I'm ordering.
Coffee?
Well, I probably would do Starbucks.
All right. If you take time off, non-COVID, staycation or exotic destination?
Exotic destination.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Sports car or SUV?
Oh, just a regular sedan.
Regular sedan.
Boring. I did the sports car and I did the SUV already.
You did. Now you just went back to, you said vanilla's good to go.
Yeah, just good.
If you had to do something other than be the superintendent of Wallingford Public Schools, and it could be anything in the whole wide world, what would you do?
I would be the owner, operator, and performer at a basically a really nice restaurant, but also would have a piano bar and stand-up comedy.
Really?
So that I could do the stand-up comedy, and I would
but not play the piano.
Not play the piano, but West Hartford.
Yeah.
Because there's not much to do after you eat.
That's
now
right.
That if you eat,
Right.
you even can't eat. But I would want to do that, and I would want to dabble in the kitchen a little bit.
Look at you.
But yeah, I would definitely.
Renaissance man over here.
Yeah, and I actually it's called. I actually have still the what do you call it, URL for my teeny bar.
Yeah. Oh, you do?
It's going to be because it's personalized martinis.
Right. Oh.
Based on your personality, based on your interests.
Look at you.
Yeah.
So this thing's actually may happen. This is
You
your
never know.
retirement plan.
Hopefully sooner rather than later.
There you go. Do you have a favorite business book?
Gosh, there's one. Oh God, it's I'm gonna get the title wrong. Oh shoot, it's darn it.
Sorry,
I can picture the cover. One of the words is in it, and maybe you'll know the name.
Yeah.
And it's going to be funny to everybody on there. But it's one of the title words is monkey.
Don't know that one.
And it talks about being strategic in your leadership and being controlled. I mean, then you got to go back to your really preeminent work, which was Good to Great.
Good to Great, sure.
I
yeah.
mean, you have to go back to Good to Great.
It's a great book for sure.
Yeah.
So what's one thing, Sal, that you learned early in your life that's helped propel you to all the success that you've had so far?
Just being who you are. And growing up, my grandparents, my parents, people could say whatever they want, but at the end of the day, as long as you could go to bed at night knowing that you've done what is right and that you have your integrity and that you have ethics and you haven't compromised either, then you're at a good place. And I think that the saying I always live by, and especially when I first got to Wallingford and had to restructure the whole district my first year there, was, what is easy isn't always right, and what is right isn't always easy.
No doubt about that. What's something that you learned later in your life or later in your career that you wish you could go back and tell young Sal, and if he'd listened to you, it would make a real big impact?
I would have stayed in the classroom longer.
Stay in the classroom longer.
I would have stayed as a teacher longer in Willimantic. I still look back, as well as much as all my career has been phenomenal, and I've loved everybody I've worked with and the students and families and staff. That part of my career, that 6 years as a teacher in Willimantic, that was the best. I learned so much more from those students than I could ever have taught them. And I just feel that time was just a wonderful time for me and to feel like you make the impact. I know we all make impact at different levels, but to have that impact at that level was phenomenal.
Just like seeing the hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, and it just you're connecting with the parents on a regular basis. You're going out and doing home visits. You're going to baseball games. I still do those things, but it just in a different way. And I think a few more years, would probably not necessarily change the trajectory of my career, but I go back to, kind of like Happy Gilmore talks about his happy place.
That's right.
That would be the happy place.
English class in Willimantic.
Yeah, English language arts, 8th grade. And it was just, they were quirky. I'm quirky.
So it works.
And it worked. I mean,
listen, that's great. And I think, you pull that out, kind of love where you are, because you never know when you might wish you spent a little more time there.
Correct.
That's fantastic. Sal, it has been a pleasure having you on for a full episode.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work in Wallingford.
I appreciate it.
And we'll stay connected.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me today. You know, my goal is to help build a community where we can learn and grow together. Your input, feedback, and engagement is critical to making that happen. Please do comment, like, and subscribe so more and more people can hear what we're doing and join our community of growth and success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you again soon.